Hello and welcome, this is Mousecunner, and we're back with some more MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries. And in the last video, I suffered my first defeat in the Solaris Arena, although I guess technically it would be my second defeat, as there was a previous run where I finished in second. But that was considered to be a successful mission, so it did still conclude, whereas the previous run was considered a failure because I did not finish high enough. And that showcases what happens in this game when you have a mission end in failure. It more or less rewinds the game to a previous state, or the previous state before you took that mission, so that you can try and complete it. So one criticism I could have of this game is that there is no way to fail a mission, because it will always rewind you to before you took the mission and allow you to attempt it again. Now, if you complete the mission in a successful state by completing what objectives there are, and you have some consequences, for instance, a lance mate is killed, you lose a mech, as long as it's not your own mech getting destroyed, because that will be counted as a failure state, then whatever consequences you suffered will come through, just like what happened the Solaris run where I finished in second. It was a successful run, so I didn't get the amount of earnings I could have if I finished first, and I also had that mech get salvaged and lost a lot of parts and had to pay to repair it. So there were consequences for that quote-unquote successful run. With that all being said, I spent some time in the mech lab poking around with things, and I was doing a comparison between the Mad Cat Mark II, the mech that I ran in that unsuccessful run, and the Gladiator, which I do have available. And I decided to switch back over to the Gladiator because of the better armor. So we can see, if I switch over to the Gladiator, the bar here is a little bit better. The one downside, I would say, is we don't have slightly the same speed, but it's not that much different. 57 kilometers an hour versus the, I believe, 58. Yeah, 58. So it's not that much different comparatively. And I don't know exactly how I had this Gladiator set up before, because I believe salvaging it set it to a lot of its defaults, so the armor wasn't set up quite how I think I had it before. As a matter of fact, might be a little uneven. There we go. That's better. I don't think the armor was quite set up the way I had it before. The jump jets were reset, so that was reinstalled. It had ECM, so I removed a lot of those systems. I changed the heat sinks around. I reinstalled the weapons we had in before, and from what I remembered, it was 4 extended range clan medium lasers and 2 clan ultra AC-20s. And I did do some evaluation of what weapons I had available. Now, I could look through the free market and see more weapons available, but one thing I was taking a look at, for instance, was downgrading to Clan Ultra AC-10s. And comparatively speaking, we have 18 tons versus 13 tons, but double damage, although that's at the cost of double the heat, although granted 1.5 heat for a weapon that cycles every 6 seconds is really not that big of a deal, just comparatively speaking. If we take a look at the medium lasers, that's 2.5 heat, and it cycles every 3 seconds, and we have more of those. To get the same damage level as we have with these AC 20s, and this is kind of the compromise here. Medium lasers are probably the most tonnage-wise efficient weapon in the game. Heat efficiency-wise, though, they consume a lot more heat, or they cost you more heat than the ballistic weapons, which are very weight inefficient at 18 tons. But again, doing the math, we can see the damage is 2.45 per medium laser at 1 ton. So 18 tons worth of these, which is how much this would weigh, would give you much more damage than the 36 that these AC-20s give you. But the cost is all that heat, which, if I were to install that many medium lasers, we would have to spend a lot of tonnage to try and dissipate the heat, and that'd be a very difficult prospect. Now, another compromise is the fact that you have to put some tonnage into ammo if you want to have more than just the default amount of ammo, which I did do. I put 1 ton in. I think we did more than that in my previous loadouts, And I don't know if you really need 60 shots because it's each ton is 20 shots. So this is the default, and adding 1 ton doubles that to 40. I don't know if you need quite 60, although 40 might be calling it close too. So it's hard to say. Anyway, getting back onto the analysis and what I was talking about is that the 13 tons, you're only saving yourself 5 tons, and yet you're having the damage. You do also get some range, but one of the benefits I had for this previous loadout is the range bracket for the medium lasers and the AC-20 is about the same. It's slightly better with the medium lasers at 400, but it's not that far different. So it's easier to keep track of whether or not my weapons are in range if you have everything at more or less the same range. Now, the AC-10's 500 is not that big of a difference. It's slightly better than the medium lasers, and it's, a little bit better than the AC-20s, but at half the damage, and you only get 5 tons out of it, it's kind of hard to argue for it. We would get 10 tons back if I put 2 of these in as opposed to 2 of these, but we would have the amount of damage that we could output. Now, we could balance that by putting in more medium lasers or something like that, but also we would save ourselves a little bit of cycle time as well. The AC-10s would fire more often than the AC-20s, which fire half as often as the medium lasers. So this is where I've been trying to figure out how I want to arm this mech. And it might be worth testing this out on a run that is not a championship run just to see where we are. Another weapon we could do at the same level, 13 tons, would be a Gauss rifle. Now, the Gauss rifle does even less damage than the AC-10, and it does slightly more heat, but it does have a lot more range at 800. Now, another consequence, though, is its very slow fire rate at 8-second recycle time. So a decent long-range weapon, but I don't think that pairs very well with the medium lasers and that whole strategy of keeping the range somewhat close. So let's try loading this up with 2 Plan Ultra AC-10s, and maybe going a little bit more heavy on the medium laser loadout. This way we can really whip through the firing if we do sequential fire and not be too bad off as a consequence. Now, I do want to kind of divert my weapons across my body just to be sure we're not going to have any problems with that. Let's see if the heat sinks will be able to mitigate how much heat we have. Okay, so how many lasers do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Maybe we'll remove 1 and give ourselves another heat sink. So that's going to be 7 total. This might be a nice loadout to try out. Again, I think it's good to experiment with it first, see how effective it is before we go into a championship, because I think the way the championships work is regardless of how you finish, that's how you finish. There's one attempt at a championship run, and then it's gone permanently. So we want to make sure that this loadout's going to work for us. I think we're more or less good to go. I think this is slightly faster than the way we had it set up before. Now, I could give myself a couple tons, slow myself down a bit, but I think that close rate is good if we're going to have mostly close-range weapons like we do. So let's try this loadout out. I'm going to keep the AC-10s as a separate weapon group, although we will be doing sequential fire, so that won't matter so much. So in most instances, we will be firing medium lasers, but every so often we'll be firing the AC-10. Alright, so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into Assault Match and see how effective this is. I would like to do the factory, as I think this is probably the event that this particular loadout, or this arena, is going to be the arena that's going to be to my best advantage. Now, one thing that's going to be different is in the championship, it's an open weight class, so we would be facing mechs that are not necessarily assault mechs. So the factory assault actually might be more dangerous than the run we could do with the championship. All right, so this is just a proof of concept run, and let's see how well it goes. So we're going to be piloting our Gladiator.
Duncan Fisher bringing to you some serious assault fighting tonight. The crowd is in a frenzy. The season is nearly over, and it is a packed house. It has been one heck of a battle over who is going to the championship and who is going to watch from the sidelines. The pilots have given the all clear, and we are ready for some serious mech madness.
That's some interesting placement there.
Let's go!
All right, let's just focus down that arm. Ow. All right, we gotta get out of here. This is not a good place to be. That was just really terrible placement to start off. We've got tons of mechs nearby us, and they're just wailing on us.
It's a real slugfest down there. Makes
So I'm gonna get behind this cover.
and join them. Ah, nope. Looks like they'll hold me back. Next time, maybe.
All right, let's go where the mechs are a little bit more sparse. I was almost wondering if that was some glitched out placement, because they started that Mad Cat Mark II like literally facing me.
Well, I promised my wife that I'd say something socially redeemable if there was a break in the action. So my advice is to be nice to your parents, be as honest as you can, and make sure to tune into the Duncan Fisher After Hours show, where I'll go over the highlights of the game. That make you happy, honey?
All right, let's get behind cover again. We put a decent amount of fire into that guy, but we're getting shot at right now. We got mechs behind us. All right, now that we can use
Earlier
this...
today, Samantha Coleman said this is her last season. It's a shame to see her go. She still manages to keep her game sharp enough to make the Grand Championships, but she's been losing ground, not gaining it. She wants to go out still being a contender. I really respect that. Although she never took a title, she's been here long enough to be a real institution. You don't see many pilots out there with gray hair. I know in the championships I'll be rooting for her. A clean shot and another mech is rubble.
All right, it looks like that Daishi cleaned up our mess. Give him a little bit of something to think about. All right, he's going to be on me here, so we're just going to have to stand toe-to-toe with him. Ow. I guess we didn't really want to stand toe-to-toe with him, huh? Oh, hit the wall there. All right, let's back off. We've taken good damage here, but I think it's good to play this out tactically. Ow. Yeah, those Daishis just like to alpha strike you. Okay, we kind of got terrain against us right now. Looks like he's going to be popping out of the wall here in a second. Now, a good amount of the weapons of this mech should be... But it's an assault mech, so you can't...
He went down because he didn't know who the key players were. You can never ignore your main competition. You can be engaged in a nice duel, and that annoying tap from behind can be the last thing you feel.
Alright, so we got, I think the Mad Cat that was positioned next to us from the beginning of the fight. Okay, we've blown off some of its weapons, so that's going to have its damage potential.
Warning, damage
Ooh.
critical.
And we go from 4 to 3 left.
Ammunition depleted.
Alright, so clearly I forgot to arm up and get myself more
That
ammo.
kid is on a roll down there. That last guy just got hammered.
But fortunately, we still have a heavier laser loadout than we had before. So lesson to myself, I was supposed to and forgot to give myself more ammo. Alright, so there shouldn't be that many left. Ooh. We might have her number if I keep laying on her. Oh, there we go.
Spectre time. Yet again, any person foolish enough to face the Mercman goes down in flames. He's the real deal, an ace pilot who is just as good in the field as he is in the arena. He's even got his own fan club, I hear. Well, the crowd seems to love him. He's a new face that is teaching a lot of these Solaris jocks a thing or two. This is Duncan Fisher, live from the factory, signing off.
All All right, well, that went pretty well. Now, we do have the gladiator damage, and this is just the danger of running the assault class, is that it just, the firepower that is on display is quite a lot, and it's difficult to come out without having some element of damage there. Usually when you get down to your armor being to a point where you have that red flashing, you're going to be at the minimum of the yellow damage state, which is going to cost you money to repair, as well as a week to do so. Let's keep in mind that we just earned 3.3 million minus the expenses already factored in. So with that being the case, let's take a look at the mech lab and see how much it's going to cost us to repair. So about 1.7 million. So we do end up with profit. Now, if it had been in the red damaged area, then I would have had spent 2 weeks to repair it, and probably more than we had earned from that event. So that's kind of the risk you have at doing the assault ranks. But we did see that that may have been a viable setup. The only real problem with it is the fact that I didn't put enough ammo in the autocannons, which we clearly saw there as I ran out of ammo close to the end of the match. But the medium laser loadout was still pretty powerful, and it was a pretty constant stream of fire when I was needing to fire. So I think I was pretty effective. So we're 1 week away from getting our Daishi back, which is our main assault mech, and maybe the mech that we do a lot of these events at. But I think the Gladiator is going to be a good one to do the factory championship, because we're going to have a lot of cover like what we saw in this run here. So I think that's what we're going to go forward with. Now, in the next video, what I might do just to save myself or spend some time is I might do just a fun run in one of the lower weight classes. We kept around light, medium, heavy, max, just in case we wanted to do a Solaris run in those weight categories. So what I might do is maybe even go back to a light class match and just have some fun and do it just to spend that 1 week of time that we're going to need to spend. In any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. This is Mouse Gunner, signing out.